You're born into gold, not just wealth, but reverence. The blood of gods, they say, flows in your veins. You are 12, daughter of Pharaoh, and the desert sun kisses your brow as servants kneel before you. But royalty is a cage built from alabaster and tradition. You've never touched the Nile without permission. Never eaten a fig without a priest's blessing. You live in a palace of limestone and carved columns, where even your laughter must be sanctioned. Your sandals are made of gold, but you trade them just to run barefoot through the dust. Your mother is distant, more stature than woman, weighed down by coal and silence. Your father, the Pharaoh, is a god in public, a shadow at home. His words are law, but they rarely reach you. You're raised by wet nurses, tutors, and eunuchs, each with a different lesson to teach: how to speak like a queen, how to move like an offering, how to exist without complaint. Your body is not your own, it belongs to the dynasty. You're not a daughter. You're a future alliance. A living contract, wrapped in linen. At 13, you bleed for the first time. The priests celebrate with incense and chants. You're escorted to the temple, bathed in sacred oils, and declared fertile. The gods, they say, have opened the lotus. You are now a woman in the eyes of Egypt. But inside you still feel like a child who misses chasing cats in the courtyard. Your name is added to scrolls, marked as eligible for marriage. Not love, marriage. Political unions wrapped in silken lies. Your fate sealed with a cartouche. The harem receives you like a snake devours a rat. Older women smile too wide. Their gold bangles clink like warning bells. You're dressed in sheer linen, your hair oiled and braided into heavy coils. They smear ochre on your lips, kajal on your eyes. You must be beautiful enough to command armies, one consort whispers, but docile enough to keep them tame. You don't know what she means yet, but you will. You're summoned to a royal banquet. The walls drip with murals, the scent of honeyed wine thick in the air. Foreign dignitaries eye you like a prize mare. One from Nubia strokes his beard and murmurs in a tongue you don't understand. Your father's vizier nods approvingly. You realize you're not there to dine. You're there to be displayed. To be weighed and whispered about. You sit still, hands folded, face unreadable. Your stomach twists, but your smile doesn't. A month later you're engaged. Not to a boy, but a man 3 decades your elder. A general with a jaw like a cliff and eyes like iron. He's never lost a battle. You will be his reward. You're lucky, your handmaid says. He could make you queen if the Pharaoh dies. But you don't want a crown made of politics and pregnancy. You want to be 13. You want a life where your worth isn't measured in dowries and dynastic advantage. Your wedding is a spectacle. Drums thunder, slaves scatter petals, and priests chant until their voices crack. You're veiled in gold threads so heavy your neck aches. You kneel beside your new husband, barely tall enough to reach his shoulder. He doesn't look at you until the ceremony ends. When he does, it's not with love, it's with possession. As if you've been purchased. Which, in truth, you have. Nights in his villa are quiet but never peaceful. He touches you as one might handle a relic, reverent but cold. You bite your tongue until it bleeds. You learn to smile when he enters the room. To nod when he boasts of battles. To swallow your terror when he speaks of heirs. He wants sons. The kingdom wants sons. And you are a vessel wearing perfume. You miss the palace, the garden with pomegranates, the old servant who used to hum lullabies. But you are no longer a daughter of Pharaoh. You are a wife of war. Pregnant at 15. Alone in a house full of guards and shadows. You press your hands to your belly at night and whisper stories to the child. Not of kings or gods, but of stars and reeds and a girl who once danced in the rain. The baby doesn't survive. The priestess says the gods must be angry. Your husband says nothing for days. When he does, he tells you to try again. As if your grief is a malfunction. As if your tears are an inconvenience. You scream into your linens until your voice breaks. Nobody comes. You become quieter. Smarter. You learn when to flatter, when to vanish. You write letters in secret, sending them back to the palace through loyal servants. Not love letters, but strategies. If your womb won't win you power, your mind will. You study scrolls by moonlight, listening to whispers in the servant quarters. You know who's plotting against whom. You know which high priest is stealing grain. You know how to make yourself essential. By 17, your husband is off to another war. You're left in charge of his estate. He assumes you'll fail. Instead, the fields flourish. The granaries overflow. The servants praise your judgment. When he returns, you are no longer the girl he married. You're not docile. You're not afraid. You speak clearly, and men listen. He calls you dangerous. You take it as a compliment. The Pharaoh falls ill. Your father, once untouchable, is now mortal. Rumors stir in the court. Succession is a blade hanging from silk. You return to the palace, not as a girl but as a contender. The priesthood respects your intellect. Nobles back you quietly. Your half-brothers fume in silence. You were never supposed to matter. Now you're unavoidable. You don't claim the throne. Not directly. But you become advisor to your dying father. Every decree has your touch. Every judgment your voice behind it. Some call you manipulative. Others, a miracle. You don't care. You've survived girlhood, marriage, miscarriage, and palace politics. Let them whisper. At 18, your husband dies in battle. The war ends. You're a widow, but not in mourning. You wear white, not black. She rejoices in death. They say. Let them. You're free now. For the first time in your life. You decline every new marriage proposal. You're not a prize anymore. You're a player. A woman with no sons, no master, and no fear. And though you cannot wear the double crown of Egypt, you sit behind it, whispering into ears that matter. You're 22 when your father dies. His funeral floods the city with incense and grief. His body entombed, his legacy uncertain. But you? You remain. You stand beside the new Pharaoh, a puppet you helped place. And though the gods may never name you ruler, history will remember the daughter who outlived kings. You sit beside the new Pharaoh like a shadow draped in linen. He is young, your half-brother, barely more than a boy clutching a crook and flail too heavy for his shoulders. The priests call him divine. The people cheer. But you see the fear behind his kohl-rimmed eyes. He knows what you are. Not just his sister. His rival. His guide. His leash. You speak softly in his ear, and the court listens, not to his voice but yours. Your enemies shift like sand in the wind. One day a general, the next a vizier. You smile at banquets, pour wine with grace, but behind the gold-rimmed goblets, your mind sharpens like a flint blade. You know which noble flirts with rebellion, which scribe forges ledgers. You know which priest hides a mistress in a papyrus boat. Knowledge is power, and you wield it like a scythe in the floodplain. At 23, your name is spoken in temples, not in prayers, but in whispers. The people don't know your face, but they know your deeds. Grain shipments arrive on time. Taxes stay fair. The Nile runs smooth, and harvests grow fat. They thank the gods. You thank your spies. You rule in all but name. But the court is a jackal den, and power breeds hunger. A cousin tries to poison your wine. The servant who brings it trembles. You sip none of it, merely smile, and later that night, the cousin is sent to oversee trade with Nubia, a cold exile dressed as promotion. No blood. Just silence. It's cleaner that way. Your half-brother grows resentful. He marries, sires a child. A son. The court rejoices. You smile and bow. And in private you begin to plan? Not treason, but survival. You know how this ends. A woman with power becomes a threat. And threats, in palaces, disappear. You don't wait. You build alliances like pyramids, stone by stone. You secure loyalty from high priests, from naval captains, even from scribes who owe you coin. You invest in temples, sponsor festivals, give gifts to foreign dignitaries. You become not just a presence at court, but a symbol. They call you the White Vulture, the Lady of Judgment, the daughter of Pharaoh. No one dares move against you. Not openly. At 26, the boy Pharaoh dies in his sleep. A fever, they say. You neither confirm nor deny the rumors. Some say it was you. Others say it was fate. All you do is grieve, visibly, convincingly, masterfully. You oversee the burial rites. You select the tomb workers. You make sure the walls sing his praises. And then you guide the council through the chaos that follows. There is no heir. No clear successor. Egypt stands on a cliff's edge. The court looks to you, not with love, but with need. You suggest a cousin. Harmless, pliable. A man who prefers sculpture to swordplay. They crown him Pharaoh. You remain in your same seat. Just a little closer to the throne. The years pass. You do not remarry. You do not leave the capital. You age slowly, gracefully, wrapped in linen and enigma. You train your nieces, not in embroidery, but in strategy. You teach them how to read court moods, how to flatter a general, how to survive a whisper campaign. One of them asks why. You tell her the truth. Because when the men die, they'll come for us. And if we're not ready, we won't even be remembered. At 30, you're more powerful than any queen in memory. Not because you bore a king, but because you outlived them. And guided them. And sometimes, replaced them. The people whisper that Maat smiles upon you. Balance, they say. She brings balance. Even when that balance is paid for in secrets, and silenced rivals. You know your limits. You don't wear the crown. You don't sit on the throne. But you shape it. You keep Egypt stable through famine, flood, and invasion. Foreign envoys seek your counsel before they speak to the pharaoh. Merchants carve your likeness into ivory pendants. Children in villages play games where they pretend to be you, not the pharaoh's daughter, but the woman who ruled behind the curtain. One day, as the sun sets over the west bank, you feel your strength falter. You stand before the Nile, remembering the girl who once watched it from behind a veil. You're older now. Wiser. Tired. Your joints ache. Your voice no longer cuts like it once did. But your legacy? It's etched in every decree, every grain shipment, every temple carving where your name appears beside Pharaoh's. When you die, there is no procession like your father's. No golden mask. No weeping crowds. But there is something rarer. Quiet respect. From priests. From scribes. From rivals who once dreamed of burying you. You're entombed not far from the royal necropolis, in a chamber the size of your ambition. Your sarcophagus reads not just, daughter of Pharaoh, but, she who brought balance. And generations later, when another girl is born into golden silence, they tell her your story. Not a fairy tale. A warning. A path. You weren't just a daughter. You weren't just a pawn. You were the knife behind the curtain. The whisper in the ear. The queen maker. And in Egypt, that's sometimes more powerful than being Pharaoh.